Hey everyone, my name is Aman. I'm a senior engineering manager at Booking.com. I work in Amsterdam. So I'm here to talk about the Gen AI product that we have at Booking.com called the AI Trip Planner. And this product is very special to me because I was involved in the launch right from the beginning of this product. And today I'm going to walk you through the whole launch of this product from 0 to 1, which we achieved in a very short time frame of about 8 weeks. And typically this type of a launch in a big company like Booking, it takes a lot of time. So we actually did disrupt our organizational structure to achieve this launch. And I'm very excited to share these types of learnings with you, which I believe are going to be very useful for the engineering leaders present in this room. Before actually talking about the launch itself and the AI Trip Planner, I want to take a step back. I want to talk about Booking.com as a business. So we are a travel company, and I hope most of the people in this room have at least heard of Booking.com, and I hope most of you have actually used it to book your travels. So what is actually we are best known for? A hotel company. We sell hotels. That's our superpower. That's our bread and butter. But a trip or a travel plan is more than that. You want to visit attractions, you want to book your flights, you have maybe a rental car to get around, or you want to take a taxi. So there are all these different elements that come together in a trip. And we sell all of those on our platform. But as I said, Booking.com is very well known for the hotel products, the accommodations offering that we have. And there is a tremendous growth opportunity for us to actually scale our other travel products to realize the vision, what we call as a connected trip. A connected trip is the one where you actually have the whole trip planned on our platform. So now we have established what a connected trip is. I want to talk about AI a little bit, and that's why I'm here today. So this is a quote from our CEO, Glenn Fogel, from last year. We see AI playing a central role in realizing the vision of the connected trip. And why is that? Just think about a rudimentary experience. You just booked a hotel. You are now staying in a particular location. We as Booking.com, we know where you're staying, and we can simply just recommend you a few attractions, a few places of interest near your stay. This is a very rudimentary application of intelligence without really using any fancy technology. And this can actually explain how we can scale our other travel products offering, right? So we see AI playing a central role in realizing the vision of the connected trip. So we have established that what a connected trip is and how AI can help us realize the vision of the connected trip. So let's go back in time. This was about the start of 2023. ChatGPT had just come on the horizon. It was taking the world by storm. Everyone wanted to build something with it. This had opened up a new way for users to interact with online storefronts. Think about Amazon roofers. Think about how you are actually able to have a companion throughout your whole journey. And Booking is no different. We are an online storefront. The whole travel journey can have a personal assistant based on your specific needs for travel. And that's where we realized, to realize the vision of the connected trip, this is the technology that can help us get there. It was time to act for us. And this is the time when our leadership decided that it's a company priority to launch a Gen AI-powered travel companion in the Booking.com apps. Why apps? Because apps are actually staying with you all the time. As a user, you keep your phone in your pocket all the time. Throughout the whole journey of travel, you will have your app as your companion in your pocket. So it's extremely important. This is where the app part is really important. So now we had a priority clear. So there was time to discuss how to make this happen. So this is when a group of managers were pulled into a room. It was a few managers. I was one of them. And we were given this ultimatum that we have to launch a travel companion in the quickest amount of time possible. I'll give you a spoiler, and that's why I'm talking here today. So we did this launch in 8 weeks. So a 0 to 1 launch of this product. It's very complex amount of collaboration that happened across many different business unit in the company. Booking.com is a huge company. We have over 15,000 employees. It's a huge tech company as well. And typically collaborations like this take a lot of time. Might take even a year to build this type of project. But we did it in less than a quarter. So how did we actually make this happen? And that's the whole discussion that I'm going to present to you today. The launch also was timed with a press release. This was a big deal for the company. There was press release in the US. It was done in the US back in the days. We have scaled the product since then. And this launch with the press release, with our CEO giving interviews, there was an impact on the share prices of the company. So you can imagine how big it was. It was very important for us to make this launch. And we got it right in the first go. No bugs, no issues. It was right in the first go. So the whole aim for me to describe this launch today is to actually share some learnings that we had throughout the whole process. And I'll describe to you how we actually broke our conventional organizational structure to actually make this launch possible in such a short space of time with a very high quality. So how did we pull this off, actually? We have a very strong culture and processes and structure in place. How do we actually make this happen in a short space of time with all these constraints in place? They are actually needed for a normal pace of development. You need your processes for efficiency, for making sure that there's no duplication of work. But in times like these, when you have a high priority thing to launch, you need to break, you need to be unconventional. And this is where the concept of a tiger team comes into play. So our tiger team actually breaks your conventional organizational boundaries and actually makes things faster. So the aim is now to launch something high priority by breaking your organizational structure. Let's talk a bit about the tiger team itself. So this concept was made popular by NASA back in the 70s. So let's go back to the 70s. The space race was in full swing. It was actually a very competitive time in the world. There was a time one of the Apollo missions was actually, there was a problem during one of the missions. Part of the spacecraft exploded in space, and the astronauts in this aircraft, they were stranded. This was a time when NASA pulled together a team of experts on the ground, and they were given one job, to bring these people back to Earth safely. These people were pulled from their day job. They disrupted their organizational structure. They pulled these people to serve a higher purpose, and these people actually made it happen. So they brought back the astronauts back to Earth safely. No life was lost, and they achieved their mission. So this is, on a high level, what a tiger team approach looks like. So how do we apply this to a corporate or an engineering organization like Booking.com? This is a very high-level breakdown of different bunch of tiger teams we had in our company to launch the AI trip planner. We had machine learning, of course. We had product and engineering. Legal, very important in AI type of use cases. And marketing to make the fancy launch material itself and for the press releases and all that. So my focus for today is going to be on the engineering side, because my background is in engineering. I'll talk about how we actually ensured the engineering was done with a very high quality and explain to you the overall process that we followed to make this launch. So I've broken down the delivery via a tiger team into 3 simple steps. Assembling a tiger team, doing the actual delivery via the team, and finally breaking it apart or disassembling it to make it into a permanent setup after the launch. All these steps are very important, and sometimes they kind of intermingle. There is some parts of each step going together simultaneously. So let me deep dive into each of these steps one by one, starting with the assembly of the tiger team. So this is the foundational step. This is where you're setting up your team for success. This is where you're putting people together and setting up processes and doing all of that, which will make the launch possible and eventually transition it out into a longer-term scope. So it's very important to actually, it's very tempting to bring a lot of people in the room to build this type of a team. But it's actually important to start with a very small team. So we are optimizing for speed. We are optimizing for decision-making. Decision-making is fast when there are less people in the room, when there are less opinions, less voices. It's extremely important to have a very small team to begin with. You can add to this team later if needed, but start with a very small team. And this team needs to be a team of experts. So every member of the team brings in a unique set of skills that only they are responsible for. So they don't interfere with each other. They make their own decisions and they move on to the next thing. So having this type of setup actually helps move faster because everyone is actually responsible for their own work. The second part is actually making sure that the people understand what they're getting into. This is going to be an intense working environment. It was for 2 months, we had a very, very intense, every day was like firefighting. So people need to know what they're getting into, including the managers. So their personal situations also should permit them to actually do this type of work. And finally, it's also important, these are people who are getting pulled from different parts of the organization. Some of the people that I led were already in my organization, but there were a few people who were also in adjacent organizations. So it's very important to make sure that their managers are aligned on this, because their day job is going to be impacted for a couple of months. They will not be able to deliver what they were doing back before actually getting pulled into the Tiger team. And for us, this was easier because this was a company priority. The leadership had full visibility over this, and the leadership wanted to make it happen. So it was easy for me to actually bring in the right people that I needed for this project. Very high level, this is the team of experts that we pulled together in the first go. Every person brought a unique set of skills. We had experts on the iOS side, Android side. So as I said before, we launched on the mobile app. So we had experts on the apps. We had experts on the backend side. So these were the experts on different layers, and they came together to make this launch possible. It was a very small team that we started with, and we didn't really need to add people permanently to this team. There's also a part of long-term success. So even in the assembly phase, when you're putting together a team, we knew that we had to actually transition it into a normal setup after the launch. So I had this idea that there are a few people who will take this into the permanent state. It's very important to have the Tiger team owners take this, evolve this product into a permanent space after the launch. This was already clarified in the assembly phase.
I hope you're enjoying this video, but did you know LeadDev has a lot more to offer?
When I think about LeadDev, I think about bricks and hearts. Bricks are those foundational things that you need to know, and LeadDev provides that through webinars, through videos, through cutting-edge research. But hearts are the things that you need to glue yourself to the people at work, and LeadDev does that through conferences and meetups.
Make sure you check out leaddev.com.
So after the assembly, after you know who are the people who are going to do this type of development, the next step is processes. I spoke about like processes might slow you down, but there is still a need for processes, very lightweight processes to set up your team for success. So first, I showed you a bunch of stakeholders. We had to make sure that we have clear agreements with all these different teams that were working on the goal. And that's done through the manager. So as a leader, you are responsible for interfacing with all the stakeholders. And the team, they have one goal: launch the product. Again, keep their focus on the goal, and as a manager, take the responsibilities. Whatever is distracting them, it's your job to make sure that those distractions go away. Setting up lightweight processes. One of the things that worked really well for us is to document every single decision that we took. We were optimizing for speed. Naturally, in these types of environments, it's very easy to kind of incur some technical debt. And it's sometimes we make decisions that are not aligned with the long-term success. So it's important to actually log these decisions and make sure that you are actually acting upon them after the launch. So we did the same. After the launch, we actually went back to some of the decisions. But the process of having a log of all the decisions was very important right from the beginning. And finally, influencing the requirements. We had discussions with product and design and making sure that the requirements are feasible. Again, optimizing for speed, making sure that the work can be delivered in the set time frame. And now the foundations are set. There's a team assembled, the processes are there's a reporting mechanism set up for the leadership to know what the progress is. So all of this is the job of a manager, to make sure that the foundations are right and the team members are able to focus on their work. Now comes the fun part, the delivery itself. Not everything goes to plan. And of course, whatever plans we made in the beginning were also definitely not successful as we actually went into development. So to give you an example, we went with a simple requirement. As I said, keeping the requirement simple, we didn't go for a push-based approach for a chat product. We went for a simple request response mechanism. But what happened actually when we actually started the launch was we saw a lot of very high latency from ChatGPT APIs. So our requests were getting timed out. And this was a time we tried to actually reduce the timeouts on our systems, but there were too many layers. So this was a complex problem, and we didn't have time to solve it. So we just changed the approach to something simpler, just used a polling-based approach for the chat. It's very important to adapt when you see roadblocks. The team needs to be focused on the goal, delivery in a set time frame. It's very important to make sure that whatever roadblock they might face, be it requirements related or something else, it's acted upon in time. And how do you do that? So I like to take this football reference. I like football myself. There's a first team and then there's a bench. So you have to use your bench very well. And the strength of the squad comes from the whole package. And that's where a Tiger Team Plus having backups is extremely important. So these are people who would actually help make the launch possible. These are people who would do small side quests. So sometimes, for example, in our case, we had to have a feature called wishlist a property. So whatever you see in the chat, you are able to wishlist that particular property and save it for later booking or planning. And this was not a core feature of the chat itself, but it was still important, and we wanted to make it to the launch. So these are the type of examples that a small team of outside help that can help you to actually accelerate the launch without really impacting the core team. So core team was not doing these types of small activities. We were utilizing the people from outside, and we had people who were ready they were basically ready to step in as needed. We also needed people to actually step in when there was a holiday. Of course, there's 2-month time frame. People would need to take holidays. So they would step in and actually make sure that the work still progresses. And finally, these people also help during a handover. It's extremely important to keep the focus on the handover at the time of the launch, because once it goes into a permanent setup, this still needs to continue at a good pace to evolve the product. Now, this is an intense working environment. And as a manager, it's also important to make sure that the intensity is not translating into something bad. So there is, of course, a possibility of conflicts arising or arguments happening. So we had also some surprises when we went along. As I mentioned before, there was a press release timed with it. This was a product that was very hyped up in the company. But we released parts of this product in production by mistake. It happens. So we didn't blame anyone. This happens. We did a thorough postmortem and made sure that this type of mistake doesn't happen again. Luckily for us, nobody caught it. None of the press had a wind of it. So there was no impact in the end on the actual launch. It's actually important to how you handle this type of scenarios. Conflicts also arise in these scenarios. The negotiations that we do with product and design, they would want to get their features in. The devs would want something else. It's very easy to get into arguments. And we had these situations also when we actually were developing. So it's important to calm people down. The intensity is high, the emotions are high. It's very important to actually step back and, as a manager, stop these types of conversations happening. Take people after they have calmed down. And how do you do that? Is by actually keeping a calm yourself. So make sure, as a manager, in these types of scenarios, if you're running this type of product, have your decompression figured out. How do you actually keep that? So for me, what worked was doing a bit of yoga and meditation. This was very calming for me. And my wife is a yoga teacher. Actually, she helped me to achieve this. So it was very useful to have my own ways to relax myself and actually get back with the same intensity the next day. And finally, you have the delivery done. You have the team, and this is the time for the actual transition to a permanent setup. Now, disassembling a Tiger team is kind of like a game of Jenga. You take out piece by piece, and the pieces can be removed even before the launch, because there are times when people have served their purpose on the Tiger team, and they can go back to the day job. Because this is a cost that we are incurring. By removing people from their day job, they are not able to do what they were actually doing before. So we actually removed people out even before the launch when their work was done. But they'd still be on the standby if we needed something to help. And these people would also help onboard the new members, the permanent members who would take on the product after the launch. And it's also very important to celebrate. This is a huge achievement. This was a huge achievement for our teams. So very important to actually acknowledge the contribution of each team member. Make sure that there is clear feedback, strong feedback given to each person, and they're rewarded for their contributions to the product. So now I've spoken about all three phases in a bit of detail: how to assemble a team, how to do the delivery via a Tiger team, and how to actually disassemble a team and make a long-term project or long-term setup that enables the project evolve. I want to just show you the outcome of all this work that we did. I don't want to talk through this. I just want you to see what we delivered. So it still gives me goosebumps watching this video. This was timed with the press release that I mentioned before. This is what our marketing team put together. We had actually the journalists who were waiting for this launch, and they used this product. They tried it out. Our CEO tried it out himself and having one-to-one conversations with the product manager. So this was a very exciting time. This was done about a year ago. Now, I'm about to close my presentation, so I want you to walk away with something from this. I've broken it down to 3 key steps which you can take back to your organizations. So this is an approach. If you have a problem that you want to solve, think about something high priority. Do you have something like that in your own company? Do you want to accelerate some product launch or something else? Maybe this is an approach for you. This is a disruptive approach, so you need to use it with caution. This will blur your organizational boundaries. And the learnings from this approach are applicable to many different types of use cases. So to give you a couple of examples, you can have firefighting. Sometimes a very severe bug enters your system, and you have to stop everything and actually fix this. This is a very similar approach. You pull in people from different areas, they get together in one room, they fix this bug, and then they go back and things continue as normal. Or sometimes very high priority things come into picture, like we had the AI situation. A few years ago in booking, when COVID hit, we had a huge problem with customer service. Back then, we basically were making negative amount of bookings, which means the cancellations were higher than the amount of bookings. And a lot of people were actually reaching out to our customer service. We did not have enough people to actually answer those calls. So in that type of a scenario, it was extremely important for us to drop everything and actually help out these customer service. And from the engineering side, what we could do is to actually evolve our systems on the CS tech to make sure that we are helping reduce the burden on the customer service. So whenever you have a high priority problem to solve, it's important to actually think about how you can break your organizational structure and actually focus on the problem itself, focus on solving this problem. So I want you to walk away with this thought. Think about something that this approach, a Tiger Team approach, can solve for you. Think about how you would do that in your own organization. And maybe I can also brainstorm with you in the office hours later on how to make it happen. Now, this is the end of my presentation. But this is not the end of the product itself. This was just the launch. I just showed you the launch. We have kept evolving this product. It was launched in the US. Afterwards, we have scaled it to many different countries. It's not available in Germany yet, so you can't try it here, unfortunately. But we have had a lot of learnings after the launch. So I'm very happy to share these learnings. I don't have enough time. I could do another presentation to actually share the learnings post-launch on how to use the Gen AI technology, how to scale it in a company like Booking, in a huge corporate working environment. And I'm happy to actually discuss these ideas with you after, in the breaks, in the office hours, and actually have brainstormed with you on how you can use this technology in your own company. So yeah, that's the end of my presentation. Thanks a lot for listening.